In today's video, we're checking out Genmax's all-new generator that is loaded with features, so we're going to get this out of the box, and the first thing you will see on top is a manual, of course, which you should read this, and then of course we do have an accessories box, which we'll go over this later, and now we'll get the generator out of here, which this is heavy at about 145 pounds empty, but with good wheels and a telescoping handle, it definitely makes it easy to move around. So after getting everything out of the box, it will include a small toolkit and a funnel, a 20 amp plug, a 50 amp RV plug, and then you do have your propane line, and again with the manual with warranty information. This generator comes in at $1,699 and has a 3.6 gallon fuel tank, which gives you about 10 hours of runtime on gas or 9 hours on a 20-pound bottle of propane at about a 25% load, and uses about 0.36 gallons per hour utilizing fuel, which is more efficient than most of the generators in its class with this size engine. And now you finally have a large generator that actually meets California emission standards, so this should be available in California. This generator is rated at 6,000 running watts on gas and 5,500 on propane, which we will do a load test later just to see how well it does. Now this does come with a lot of loaded features on the faceplate, so we'll take a look at it. You can see it does have your main on-off switch, along with a low idle or an eco mode type switch, along with a main reset button. Also an all-in-one start-stop button, along with your fuel selector switch, which this will switch over to gas or propane, and then your propane hookup, which this is a little better than the last model because it doesn't protrude out like the other one did that could get caught on stuff. Now instead of utilizing a 12 volt socket, they ended up going with a couple of USB ports, a USB type C and an A. This way you can charge up smart devices. It does come with one set of 20 amp plugs, and this is on a GFCI, so it does have another circuit breaker right there installed with it. And another thing I do like about Genmax, they have protective caps and covers over everything to keep the dust and elements out. Like out of this 50 amp RV plug, now you have a true 50 amp RV generator that's ready for use without having to modify the end of your cable. And it does come with a new digital display center, unlike the other one, which had a little bit more information, but this will usually do because most people don't really stare at their generator. And another new feature is this automatic transfer switch plug. So now this can be utilized with different types of automatic transfer switches, but also depends on the type that you have. And now another great option is the ability to switch from 120 volts all the way to 240 and get full power out of this unit. So now you can switch to 240 and power up your whole home panel, and you can get 25 amps per leg, or for the other guys who want to use it for just 120 volts, you can get the full 50 amps out of one side. And now you do have the ability as well to be able to parallel two of these units together by utilizing their parallel ports. So now that can give you up to 12,000 running watts of power by utilizing just this. And you have a grounding lug, of course, and also remote start, so you can start it up from inside your home or your RV. On top, you will see a quick start guide, that way you don't really have to read the manual, and you also have all the specs right on top of the unit, so you can see it says 120 volts at 50 amps, or at 240 you get 25 amps per leg, or 22.9 on propane. Now in order to get this unit started, you have to take out the two screws on the bottom and pop off this panel, and this will show you where your starting battery is, and this is a lithium ion battery. And then of course your air box, which this is a little bit snug to get to, it's not bad, but you do have an access thumb screw that's kind of right on the bottom, so you can pop off the cover. That'll get you to your air filter. But now as we go to the other side, you'll notice this one doesn't actually have like a little access door to open and get to your oil compartment or the battery cables, so you have to pop it off, just give it a rotate around at 180 degrees and just set it to the front, and it'll stay right there, and we can get started with adding oil and connecting our battery. Now this model does come with an oil drain hose, which is nice because these heavier units are not easy to tip, so you can just drain it out into a bucket. And this is where we'll fill it up, which we'll go ahead and check that real quick, because sometimes there is oil actually left in these, just a little, so you don't want to add the full amount. And you want to check because at 0.21 gallons, which is our oil capacity here, if you do look in the manual, it says 0.12 gallons, so that's actually an error. So you need to add about 26.5 ounces of oil to this unit, and I'm going to go ahead and use my own funnel just because I like it better. And speaking of likes, this is a great time to smash that like button and subscribe, and double check that oil level just to make sure it is all the way full. And I did find one of these if you're interested in a magnetic drain plug. I'll have a link in the description, and it won't pick up all the material, but it is a good idea to do a couple oil changes in the first hour. I usually do at least one after 30 minutes and then maybe one after a couple hours after that. we can go ahead and hook up the battery. Now, I did find out that I didn't like the way that they had the battery cable running, so I ended up tucking it behind the oil hose. That way it's not touching the motor mount or part of the frame, and I just kind of like that better. So we'll put the side panel back on, and now we can get this outside to do its first fire up, and we'll also do a sound check and then move on to the load test. Now I'm going to utilize this unit as strictly a propane model, so I have this hooked up to the propane bottle over there. That way I can use this for home and also my RV mainly. So we'll turn this on, and then we'll let it kind of prime up just for a second. The switch is already on propane, and then after we turn this on, you'll hear a couple clicks that'll kind of help prime the line. And one thing that's nice about propane is that they usually fire up pretty quick because it is a pressurized bottle. So we'll see how many times it takes to start. Normally about 2. Wow, look at that, it fired up right away. Well, that's, again, a nice thing about propane is because it is pressurized, it's already feeding the fuel into the carburetor, basically. So I did miss a little puff of smoke, though, and it did have just a little bit that comes out. That's mainly from assembly oil or assembly grease, but so far this thing sounds great. It's definitely quiet. I'm going to put this into the low idle mode real quick. And, oops, hold on, missed it. Press that again. And there we go. This is definitely a quiet model. A little bit of rattle from this handle here, which, man, if it's not the handles that rattle, it's like the wheels, like the Predator model. That thing really has a bad rattle from the wheels, but overall, I like this so far. I don't know if you can tell, but it's definitely quiet. The handle rattle, I'll fix that. So we'll take a look at the display real quick just to kind of show you as it goes through, but that's our load indicator there. That says 247 volts. It should go to the 120, which it does there, 123. And then it should rotate again. That'll be our amps. And then one more time, it should go over to the power part. Now this is going to say like 3.2 kilowatts is what it is, so 3,200 watts. And then how many hours that are on running. And you have a fuel gauge on the right. Okay, so sound check from 23 feet away. Now, I don't have it under a quarter load, but if I did put it under that, it would be, well, almost exactly the same. It doesn't change a whole lot, maybe 1 decibel, but we'll see what it looks like. And we're coming out right about, I'd say that's about 60, maybe 60.5 decibels. I mean, again, this is really quiet. It has a good tone to it as well. But also, when you add other factors, like concrete is going to be the loudest because it reflects the sound, right? So if we add grass, bushes, or rocks, or anything else, it'll help absorb it. And now look at it. From 23 feet away, exact same test, just on grass, much quieter. This thing just purrs. It's really quiet. Now, as we take a quick look at the older model, which this was also a really good generator and still is, the new one is about 10% bigger, but it doesn't have this little protruding kind of propane line, which that was one of the improvements. The new one is a little bit taller, but neither one of these are really going to fit under a truck bed with the tonneau cover. So if that's an option, you may need one of the higher tonneau covers, but again, the size is about 10, maybe 15% larger and about 20 pounds heavier, but loaded with a lot of options like the automatic transfer switch, the switchable 120 and 240. Other than that, this one here you can still use on a 30 amp, but you only get half the power. Okay, so load test time. We'll utilize my 50 amp RV trailer on the generator just to see how well it does holding loads on propane. Now, I do have this hooked up on a 50 amp service with 240 volts switched on, utilizing my onboard propane tanks. And I'm not using the regulator, it's just the onboard regulators, and you can see my line that comes out of the RV there, which I may reconfigure that a little bit later as I want to change some things around. But we're going to keep track of our loads using this Watchdog Smart Surge Protector, and it does have emergency power shutoff. I used to use my meter that I built a long time ago, and if you've seen my other videos, but I'd find the load to be maybe up to 3% off sometimes depending on what I was doing. But this shows you all your information like your volts, amps, shows you the frequency and also the amount of watts, and can keep track of how much energy that you've used. So it's a really nice feature, and you can buy these wired or unwired like mine. So I do have it switched on 240 again, so we're pretty much ready to go. We'll get started. Now, as we come inside my RV here, I'll show you that I have my converter turned off. I don't charge my batteries utilizing the generator or electric because I have my solar doing that for me, so basically charging those up for free. And now we'll turn on the electric water heater. This is going to draw about 1500 watts, so it's a decent load right off the bat. It'll be on line 2 on the right side. You can see it going up. You can take a look at our amps at 12.1 and almost 1500 watts, and voltage looks great. So we'll move on and go turn on some other items. We're going to go turn on this 1500 watt oil heater real quick. And so basically this is going to be on line 1 on the left side, and I'm just going to set my phone down there real quick. And don't worry, it's not hot, it's like an ice box in here. It's only about 40 degrees, so we'll turn that on. Now you can see the load is now starting to come up, and this should be almost equal to the water heater as well. Sorry about the image, let me clear that up real quick. I'll change it because it is a little washed out. Okay, there we go, a little better. So now you can see the amperage is about the same as on the right side, so both sides are drawing almost the same amount of power. Okay, now we're going to add this little 350 watt heater, which everybody hates, but I still like the thing. I don't leave it here, it's just here for the test only. This will draw about 3 amps after it kind of gets up and going, and uses about 300 watts, roughly. And if you take a look on the left side, that's where it'll come up. And this should go down to about 15 amps roughly after it settles down, but it'll probably go up to 16, maybe 16 and a half as it powers up. As you can see there, about 16, and now just about 15 amps with it settled down. A quick look at the generator, and you can see that right now about 50% load, give or take, and 3000.2, so that'd be 3220 watts, give or take. And about 0.3 hours on it. That's the display showing the voltage, 242 or 121 depending on how it reads, I guess, and showing 14.7 amps on one line, and then I guess that's a combined amps as it was kind of flashing back and forth there, so that was kind of different. But and then 3.24 kilowatts, and again 0.3 hours of runtime. So it looks like it just kind of switches back and forth a little bit, but pretty accurate for the most part. And yeah, that's about right, so looks pretty good. All right, so we'll do the microwave test, see how well it does, and this will be on line 2, so this pretty much should finish up line 2 as far as usable amps on this particular line. And we are on propane, so you can see now that we're at 24, and it says allowable is 22.9 amps, so I'm assuming this may kick off, we'll see. But if it was on gas, we would get the full 25 amps, but being on propane, it's a little less. And so far, it's still doing good. Voltage looks just fine. Almost 3,000 watts, 2,800 plus. Out to the generator, it says 100% load, and that's just for the one side. So other than that, it's still running and not kicking off. So cool. I mean, that's like full power on propane. And the microwave did go off, and you can see 22.9 there. I mean, so far this generator, I like it. It's quiet, it runs really good. I could barely hear it inside the RV. But what do you guys think about this brand new unit? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash the like button and check out this other video.